So just a quick check if we're live already on YouTube, because there's always a little delay of a few seconds. But I think we should be live, yes. So welcome everyone who's watching live now. And oh, sorry, I have a little echo here, and off we go. So, welcome tonight. We have tonight in Central Europe, at least, we have Dequitem. So, very welcome guest on the new episode here of the Armory Roundtable. So, for any of you who's new and coming through Dequitem's channel, this is a fairly new series of live streams I've been doing with any kind of people who are interested in swords. So makers, practitioners, collectors, from the whole kind of gamut, because I just want to kind of understand what brings people towards this kind of passion for antique weapons, fighting, and armor. So thank you for joining Dequitem. I'll let you introduce yourself if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. Hi and welcome to all in the stream watching. Yeah, I'm Dequitem. So I have to use this phrase. I'm Dequitem, an armored fighter in non-choreographed night fights. Like, okay, not those, but like them you normally see on my channel. Yes, so I have a YouTube channel that's growing fast. It feels for me it's growing fast, so it's a little bit more than 300,000 subscribers now. And yeah, I do different videos. Most of my videos are non-choreographed night fights, so I play some cameras and fight and then make cool videos about it.
Which seemed to be quite successful. So when did you start with your channel, and what was the drive behind kicking off the project?
It's actually hard to tell when I started, because I started many years ago. First with uploading only the typical sword plays from training and sparring. And then I decided to make some cool videos about it. So I started like everyone with highlights. And yeah, I studied film and art. So for me, it was important to match these clips a little bit and see what I can do with, yeah, with my skills in photography and filming. And I think it's now around 3 years that I uploaded videos where I was really proud about the product in the end. And yeah, so it's about 3
Okay,
years now.
okay. Already answers a couple of questions, because one of my questions was going to be who's in charge of the cinematography and, let's say, the visual aspects of the channel, but I think then that's you.
Yeah.
And in terms of your, I think the first question probably is what brought you to antique fighting techniques and weapons and armor? What was the kind of drive?
I started as many with karate in school, and after that I tried out some judo, some kendo, and of course a lot of the rings. I want to be Aragon for my whole life, so now I'm closer than most other people. And yeah, that's the main reasons why I tried this.
And if you look at your channel, you obviously cover a whole bunch of different weapons, and but do you have, let's say, mm, era or a geographical location or kind of something that is your comfort zone, let's say?
It changed over time. So I started for around 13 years with Olympic saber fencing, so not in the Olympic class, but saber fencing
Hmm.
in the rules of Olympic fencing. So, um, of course, that was the start where I felt the most comfortable. But now a little bit is gone, and the main focus is the foot movement from so that kind state. But at the moment, it's armored fighting. So I
Hmm.
changed 3 years ago to HEMA. So longsword and fighting in HEMA gear was my biggest comfort zone 3 years ago. And then I started to build an armor that fits me well. So I started 5 years ago with forging and making armor. So it's more. I think it's already 7 or 8 years that I started with making armor, and I was in the university and haven't any money at all.
Hmm.
But because I'm studied art, there was the option to smith there in the university and use the tools there. And
Okay.
for that reason, it was possible for me to make armor really, really cheap. And it looked really, really cheap as well. The first armors, of course. And then yeah, repeated and repeated. And after a couple of chest plates and gauntlets, they become looking better
Hmm.
and were more fitting to my size. And 5 years ago, I forged my, I started to forge my first full fitting armor. So most of the armor parts are still from that time. It took
Hmm.
me over a year, nearly 2 years to forge my full armor set. Um, there were some parts in my oldest videos where I used some Buhurt armor as well. And the last part is this helmet from 2 years ago. Um, since then, there's only slight changes to my armor. But I can't stop making armor because I destroy them really, really fast, sadly. So yeah, the next armor will be forged soon.
Okay, I think we'll stay on the forging topic for a sec. I just wanted to, well, we have a comment here by Ace, hello. And then we have a first question already by David, which is when you say your fights aren't choreographed, how do you guys keep from accidentally killing each other? I think this is a question a lot of people
Yeah,
watching your videos will
the
have.
main question. So I have we will start this question and then we will come back to forging.
Yes.
Okay, I have two daggers. There are different scabbards, but these daggers look nearly the same. I start with the first one, this dagger, and I can't use it in combat because this is the real sharp dagger with a pointy end. And then I bought these daggers from the same manufacturers. I reforged the tip of this one, so it's rolled backwards,
Mhm.
and now it's become a blunt weapon that can't kill you that easy. It still can technically when I have enough force and ram it here.
Mhm.
And of course, we have armor, so it's possible to survive these with chainmail, and they will not burst through chainmail. So it's completely unchoreographed, of course. There is nearly the full force that I can give, um, but it's nearly safe weapons. Nearly, yeah.
And
That's how it's
in
made.
terms of injuries, then, okay, let's say nobody dies, but I can imagine having still a semi-pointy dagger hitting you through mail will leave at least bruises. So, what kind of have you
I
ever
had
had?
already has a bruise
Okay.
from showing only this. Yeah, there. injuries, sadly. My
Yeah.
last video, the samurai fight, so the short I uploaded yesterday, I think, shows a scene where I do only a quick stab to the hand of the samurai where there's no protection, and I pierced with the rolled sword. So it's not only this small section, it's much bigger. I pierced his hand here and pierced into the skin and ripped out some blood vessels. He continued fighting, so you can't see it in the video. But yeah, there are some injuries. He's fine, and we will record next week the next one.
Oh, no.
But indeed, it's a little bit dangerous, and there are some injuries, but I will not show them on
Hmm.
YouTube. Sometimes I show them to my members, but yeah, there's already the risk that a good amount of my videos get demonetized because it's showing killing
Hmm.
people. Not really, but that's what the algorithm thinks often. So then I got no money at all, and it's already hard to upload anything with blood and stuff like this. I
And
have a small injury here on my arm. I'm not sure if you can see it.
yeah, I
There is
think
from
we,
here to
yeah, the
here,
scar. Not
big
that small.
scar. There was a two-handed sword that cut here, and there was here a plate and here a plate, and there was a small gap of only 2 millimeters. And my bone jumped out, pierced the whole skin from inside, jumped back in the flesh, and the the full elbow was shattered into 9 pieces,
Oof.
and I needed 2 operations to
Okay.
yeah move it already well again.
Yeah, so
So there are
non-lethal,
many
but
questions again.
yeah, exactly. Okay, actually, let's address a few of the questions, just to not leave everyone hanging. So we have here Steven Garcia. Have experimented with any weapon forging as well, or mostly just the armor?
um, I forge weapons, so my newest forged weapon for the next video is a Yari spear. Um, uh, I can't pronounce it right, but I think the Japanese spear
Hmm.
for a samurai. Um, I forge strange weapons that I don't have to harden myself. So something like a spear blade isn't needed to make it harder because yeah, it it's already really thick in most parts and will not break or dent that much.
Hmm.
But hardened blades I buy from smiths where I'm sure that the hardening is correct and they
Hmm.
have better tools than me to make it.
That is
Yeah.
because, of course, of the risk. Like
So,
a break while
yeah.
you're fighting will kill someone.
Yeah, then I can use the sharp daggers as well. It's not
And
funny.
how do you build enough trust with your team, let's say with the people you fight with? Because let's say this goes a few steps beyond regular sparring and it's a little more
Yeah.
involved. So how was that
Um,
process? How did you?
of course, when I meet new people, I normally do sparring with them and show them what I can do. And most of the time, people trust me because I'm skilled and I can hold back. And of course, sometimes I have to hold back. Like in my recent video with my friend Martin as an archer, where he has no face protection at all and no leg protection and no forearm protection. So where can you hit him? Of course, not many places are able to hit in full force. So in the one of the fights, I was able to get close, grabbed him, and had my okatana in front of his face. So I was able to draw it a little bit softer over his mouth to simulate his death. And if you don't have control, that's really, really dangerous. So I already slipped the blade through his mouth. So a little bit more force. And that would problematic for his teeth. And so it's trust from my companions, because they
Yeah.
normally know that I knew what I do.
Okay, and I think that actually answers the next question we had by Hinoji777, which is how were you able to make the archery fight non-lethal? Um,
Yeah, for the archering, we used only a 35-pound bow and no steel tip on the arrows that were shoot at me in armor, and only one arrow with a steel tip for showing off that I had in my bow for shooting, but not to my opponent.
So
Yeah.
how much time normally goes into planning? So when I titled this stream, I called it the aesthetics of fighting in armor, because I have the feeling that one of the biggest elements of your videos is actually this kind of care to well, there's the beauty of the landscape, of the locations you choose, but there's also the armor, there's the movement. Like everything kind of seems to concur towards something beautiful. But now that I also know that you also forge your armor, you forge some of your weapons, and you kind of do the whole thing yourself, I'm wondering how much of a project is each video, and like what kind of process do you go to be able to produce so
Yeah.
frequently?
I'm actually the only one behind this channel. So, of course, there are my opponents in my videos, but they normally only care for their own armors. Most of the time, not only for their weapons, and sometimes I give them armor and weapons as well. So their only part is to fight with me. And all the rest behind these videos is my part. And I don't have any help. Of course, my wife supports me in kind of ways, of course. But yeah, it's all me.
Okay, that's impressive. Um, so actually, we have one question that moves away a little from this, but it's about the armor making and tutorials. Do you have plans to upload more of those?
Sorry, I read the comment myself.
Oh
Hi,
yeah,
Ace. And can you repeat the question?
yeah.
Sorry.
It's by Franski Kupic Samo. Will you upload more armor making tutorials or videos?
That's a frequent question.
I can
No,
imagine.
because it don't pay off. So there are maybe 2,000 people that are interested in my armor stuff, but that's not enough to make the amount of work that goes
Mm,
into these videos. So when I forge a weapon, that's about 10 hours. If I forge the weapon, record it, and cut the videos for the forging process, that's amount of 50 hours then. So normally, so if someone pays me for 40 hours of work, then okay, it could pay
yeah.
off, but that's not the case. So from a 2,000 viewer videos, I got $5 to $10, maybe less. So
Yeah.
no, I'm not working for $10, maximum 40 hours. That's not
That
possible.
is low rate.
Yeah, the fighting videos don't pay off as well, really.
Hmm.
So it's already a job that don't pay off, but that's a lot more fun. So
Yeah.
cutting and editing a video that makes fun, and not only showing you of 40 hours swinging a hammer or 10 hours swinging a hammer. and then repeat it and watch it for 40 hours, that's
or more.
not so funny for the editor. And I'm the editor, so that's hard. Maybe some live streams in future, but at the moment, I live stream with my smartphone because I don't have enough internet to do that with better tools.
Okay, and in terms of the your viewership, then, do you think, or do you have insights? Are they mostly people from HEMA background, interested in the, let's say, a historical context, or just the visual aspect? What would you say is the core of your audience?
Yeah, kind of as well. Um, I have the luck that my videos work also for people who don't fight themselves. And the comments often, yeah, show that. So I think there are a lot, very many people who train as well in HEMA or are interested in these topics. But I think that's not all my viewers. So I don't have any numbers. It's funny when sometimes, so today, um, uh, we have in Germany an organization where all trainers are connected via WhatsApp. And there someone write me, we have 2 members in our club only this year who came to this sport over my videos. And that's
Oh,
funny
that's nice.
when these clubs are only 20 peoples or 30, and then 2 of them new from this year already are only coming to the sport with my videos. That's very really cool. But I think the majority don't spar. Maybe I'm wrong.
And based on this, like on your influence on new joiners, do you feel the weight of responsibility of I mean, obviously
I'm not
your
sure what
content is
they
top-notch.
expect after watching my videos.
Exactly.
So I don't know if they stay after seeing how normal training looks. Of course, normal training in our club looks similar to normal HEMA training often.
Mhm.
We train more in armor, but that's expensive, and people are always impressed how expensive it is. So we are a really small group and have people who are travel more than 2 hours to train with us. But even then, we are under 10 people in armor. Um, and when new fighters or new members of our club join us and we tell them, okay, you can buy HEMA gear for €1,000, that's already expensive for
Yeah.
most people, of course. And then I tell them, yes, but you will be the only one in regular training who train without armor. So maybe you will be interested in buying armor soon for €15,000. And then most of them leaving um, after that
Yeah.
conversation, or telling you that they will stay with HEMA gear. And after half a year, they disappear because they are the only ones who train without armor. And it's not the same. If you ever tried fighting in armor, you will never train without armor again because
Mm.
it's so good. It's so much better than normal HEMA. And
Okay.
I don't know anyone who didn't say the same after trying it out.
Interesting. And we'll answer. I see some questions are accumulating there, but we'll answer them in just a second. I just wanted a follow-up question. What do you think makes armored fighting so good? Like, what is that special thing that for you makes it
Okay,
so unique?
when you fight in HEMA, there
Hmm.
are 3 stances that work. So from Tag, Flug, and Posta di Ferro, Alba. And You can thrust, you can cut, kind of, and that's all. So
Mm,
if you do this a couple of times, you know all stuff. And after some years, most people get bored.
mm,
But in armored fighting, there's so much more because it's easy to go into grappling, ringen, and all the techniques as well. So you can do so much more techniques. There's so many martial arts based on grappling that most of them work really well in armor as well. So you can compete in 20 different martial arts in armor and can learn more and more over time. And
mm.
you don't have to stop after getting hit. You can continue and continue and continue because most of them didn't hurt you. If I do HEMA, I visited the German Kader, so the top 10 fighters of HEMA longsword in Germany, and fought with them. And since then, I have a broken rib. And last time that I was seriously injured in armored fighting is 2 years ago. So,
Okay.
or yeah, also some small stuff. But the broken ribs and broken fingers and all that stuff is always when I don't fight with armor. So yeah, it's less risk, but much more fun and so much more to learn. And it's better.
Yeah. And in a sense, I mean, that's already an answer to maybe a kind of experimental history question because you do get hurt less. That already explains why people chose to wear armor. Lots of times there's like people try to debate. Um, but it's, I think, one of those questions that just has a very clear answer. It's yes, when you're covered with metal, you are safer. Although I had a question because, as you mentioned, grappling, and I noticed in a lot of your videos, they kind of end with a lot of really heavy breathing on the ground, and you can sense the effort. So, how quickly do you deplete your energy when fighting in armor? Let's say, is it really such a quick
Mm,
thing of just a couple of minutes and then you're kind of done?
yeah.
Okay.
I recorded 5 videos, also 5 duels with the Samurai Noah of my last videos.
Hmm.
And I only uploaded 2 because the rest was so short. And so, yeah, it's not boring, but it's so you hit your swords 2 times with thrusts and cuts. Oh, 1 thrust, 1 cut, and it's over. And then you are in grappling. You don't do cool stuff. Sometimes it's you grab the helmet and push it in the ground, and the other falls on the ground and can do nothing after that. And then
Mm.
you rips your dagger and push it in. And yeah, okay, not the most interesting fight, but it worked really well. And when I would upload these videos, the comments would be, why didn't the knight defeated the samurai? He has such a huge advantage.
Mm-mm.
Did he? Kind of yes, but he has also disadvantages. Grappling with full steel gauntlets, mittens, where you don't have your fingers to move, is much harder. So,
Mm.
yeah, and it's not interesting to post 5 videos of the same location. So the
That is
viewers will get
also
bored,
yeah,
the
this.
algorithm does suck it, and so on.
I
So you
understand.
only upload the coolest videos.
Okay, we'll catch up on a few questions because they're
Yeah,
coming in
so many.
quickly. So one from Ace, he's a fan of yours, but getting straight to the point, I think that if you use more of scenario or backstory, it would add up excitement. And yeah, this actually resonates a lot with me because this is a question I actually wanted to ask you. So I'll integrate it, and then you can answer both maybe. But it seems like a lot of your scenes are small parts of a larger story often. Like you see someone walking. The peasant video was a good example, like the fight against the knight. And yeah, so what's the element of storytelling you put in your video, or would you put more of it as Ace suggests?
Yeah. Um, let's stay on the peasant video. So I invited 5 friends to join me to do a video about one night against some peasants. Nothing more. So I invited them. The weather was shit. So it was raining. It was under, I think, -4 degrees in rain and fog, and it was horrible. And then we did 3 videos, and everyone was fully KO and freezing to death nearly. And then I said to them, yeah, let's do a story around it. Take a seat there. I know it's a national park. We can't make fire, but try it in the rain. And then I'm starting to record some stuff around it. And
Hmm.
that's so hard for them. And they don't like it. All don't like it. And we don't make huge plans for these recordings normally, because after fighting, you don't have breath for making it. And
Mm,
before fighting, you don't have breath for the fighting afterwards. So you normally need more days to film more than that. And yeah, it's a YouTube project, not a film with financial background. So that's hard. I try my best to do small stuff to make these easy for my friends. So no phrases they have to say, work with silence and stuff like that. I think that works fine.
hmm.
Sometimes I record more, but then it takes minimum a day, a full day to film
Yeah.
for 2 minutes. So my video against the Russian knight in the church was a longer planned thing because I needed some permissions to film there and do it on a day where there are no visitors and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And only filming to put armor on makes putting armor on that you normally do in under 10 minutes to a 3-hour session. And then I put only 2 scenes of it where he put his chest plate and his arms on it. So 10 seconds for 3 hours filming.
Yeah.
And that's not the editing. So that's hard. And that's why our film's so expensive. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I try my best, but it will not be more without much money.
Yeah. Have you ever been contacted by movie productions?
Yeah. Um, but not with serious requests. So there
Okay.
are often film students
Yeah.
who can't do more than I do without them. So they offer nearly nothing for me. Um,
Mm.
and there was the German television. Um, and I think there's not a single movie production in the world that has more money than the German television. But
Okay.
they told me, okay, we want to make a small show about you. And they asked them, okay, what do you pay for it? Nothing. Okay.
Oh, ouch.
Then
Yeah.
bye.
Understandable.
Yeah. I already tried to get in contact with them, but it wasn't the right date. And so there were multiple reasons for it to say
Yeah.
no. But yeah, that's a huge problem. And I will make a collaboration soon with another film crew, which I can really recommend on YouTube. So Paralight Works. I hope they don't hate me for for calling it before making it. But I'm hyped to
Mm,
work with them
now you're
soon, of
committed.
course. Yeah, and Powerlight Works, who don't know them, they make very, very good historical movies. So maybe a short movie with them sooner, but don't expect too much. A short movie on my channel is still under 5 minutes.
Okay, I think something to look forward to. So we have actually another question related to filming since we're on the topic. So besides the filming equipment, what else do you bring out to the filming locations?
My cameras and sound. So it's not that much. I have 2 cameras and a drone. So I place them around me and start filming. And normally
Hmm.
that's sometimes not enough angles because sometimes one angle sucks or people come in the background and stand there and I can't use it anymore. Sometimes I do huge editing where I frame for frame cut them out and replace them from background from other scenes and stuff. So there's much work in it. But I have only these cams and then I place them and then we start filming. And I have one sound system to record the clashing sounds of
Mhm.
the fights. Yeah,
And
that's all.
I think this is the perfect time for the next comment, which is that that's unbelievable quality for one person, and I think everyone agrees. It's pretty incredible what you're able to output. Um, and we have another question here, since we're on a roll. What does Dequitem actually mean? Google was frustratingly unhelpful.
It comes from the Latin word equitem. Equitem is something like the rider, so the horseman. And the German word Ritter, so knight, is translatable to Ritter, Reiter, so the rider, so the
Hmm.
horseman. So equitem is something like the German Ritter or the German knight. So there's only the D, a question, and that's my real name's first letter. And that's equitem or dequitem then.
Makes a lot of sense. Mystery unveiled. Then we have,
Hi to hi to
sorry?
Spadone project. Like your
Yes.
videos as well.
So, hi,
Sorry.
Nicolo. And then I think we're so behind with the comments. We're still commenting on the price of your armor, price of a car. Yeah, that's gonna put quite a few
Yeah.
HEMA
Ac-
beginners out of. And
For me,
then,
it was less expensive because I forged it, but
yeah,
for
well, but
someone who
time
can't
and
forge, yeah.
know-how. And okay, I'm not sure how to manage all this amount of comments. I'm not used to it.
Sorry.
But,
I
okay,
told
we
too
have
early.
Gunson history. It's quite rare to see Dequitem inside, so looking forward to the stock. Thank you, Gunson. And
It's a
from a
pleasure.
viewer's perspective, I really enjoy the grittiness of armored combat. With an armored fighting, you have to hold back so much more. I think this is also a point you already touched upon. And
Yeah.
yeah.
The biggest problem with with real fights is that most of the techniques didn't work in that moment. So there are so many counter techniques. So if I try the perfect ushimate, so hip and foot throw, um, yeah, there are so many ways to counter it with body balance, and then it looks like shit. But I actually did the technique really well, but my opponent did the counter technique well as well. And then it looks like some kind of wiggling around. So that's why real fighting looks like everyone sucks and looks messy.
So based on this, and since there's the usual ongoing debate about fighting in movies and how realistic it is and everything, your fighting is obviously historically grounded, so it's real techniques but it also looks very good. So what are the movies or other kind of videos that attempt this doing wrong when they're not able to kind of catch the
Yeah.
beauty of the fight.
You want to show off good techniques, but a good technique only works if you have a skill gap. So a good fighter and a bad fighter.
Mm,
So the good fighter does a technique and the bad fighter lets him do the technique. So he make a move. Normally after 2 techniques, the fight would be over. So you throw someone and ram and the dagger. Um, End of the story. But to make a movie fight looking gritty or messy or hard, you need to change this gap permanently. So now someone is good. Now the other one in the next scene or the next technique is good. So that doesn't work in a real fight, but that's how you make it possible that you can show off good techniques and no counters to it. Or you show a good technique start and a good counter to it, but then the opponent starts to do nothing nearly. And that's why most film fights don't look good, because they never fail a technique. So they never struggle with their fighting style.
yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of sad, but sometimes I also choose to. So if I sometimes I have a fight that is short, then I have a fight that is short, and I have a fight that is short, and then the filming was over. So what have I to do? I take 2 of these fights and try to compare them to stretch out the fight a little bit, to make it longer. So I have still a non-choreographed fight, but I put a scene from one fight in the middle of the fight so that it's a little bit longer. So that's all that I can do with these fights to make them a little bit more flashy sometimes.
Hmm.
And that's a way how I can make the fight sometimes a little bit less messy. So sometimes fights that I don't show are even more messy, where we wiggle around, so holding the neck of the opponent, holding under the arms for 2 minutes. And it's looking stupid. And it doesn't look good, but that's how
Hmm.
real fights are. So sometimes even messier than the stuff I normally show on my channel.
Okay, so well, hopefully someone on the crew of what is it, the new Odyssey movie that they're filming, I think.
No,
So,
they didn't.
so
They will not.
hopefully someone picks up some useful tips. I was curious about what insights, if any, since you have this kind of focus on the historical accuracy, you do fight in armor, you make your armor, and you also have this eye for the action, let's say. Are there any insights or things that you read, maybe like misconceptions or myths about fighting in armor that most people that haven't tried would think, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense, but then once you actually have that experience, like no, the reality is very different.
Uh, there are so many.
Okay.
Okay. Um, um, the most requested thing is, why do we don't start with a dagger? Because
Hmm.
the fights end with a dagger. So why using something like a sword or something like this?
Yeah.
For what reason? And the reason is simple, because you can't start with this and win. Because when you try to start with this, you get demolished with a longer weapon or stronger or heavier weapon. Because you can't reach your opponent and will get bashed without parrying a lot. Because try to parry with only this small dagger. It's long, of course, but not that long. Um, and the next thing is, yeah, then you hit your opponent and you hit him directly in the mail armor. And this will bite in that much. That will
Mm.
hurt, but it will not kill.
Mm-mm.
And then you try it and try it again with full force, and you will always get stopped after this amount. Because this dagger weighs around to 300 grams, maybe. I'm not sure, maybe 400. So that's not really heavy. But then I have my sword here, and this is 1.6, I think, 1.6 kilogram. It's not sharp, that's for my training. But this is nearly the same blade, and when I have a sharp one, it has the same tip, so I can pierce, but with much more force. So I'm able to pierce the mail. With the dagger, I can only pierce the mail if I have the opponent on the ground and can push with my full body weight inside the mail. So the only option to kill someone in full armor, with mail armor, of course, is to get him on the ground first and then push him with the full weight. And groundwork isn't that easy. You never know the outcome. And even the strongest fighter, there is no so big skill gap that you can be sure about the outcome. So this is actually dangerous if it would be a real fight. So you want to start with longer weapons. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions that my videos produce, because I love the aesthetic and the grittiness of ground combat.
Yeah.
So there are so many fights that would stop already before the ground fight. So I think 50% of my fights wouldn't have stopped before, because something like the piercing with the sword, would the sword be sharp, I wouldn't only pierce here and rip out, I would cut the whole bones and flesh of his hand, and he couldn't use it anymore. And then he wouldn't be able to grab my neck and push me on the ground, and wouldn't able to grab his tanto and ram it into my body. And the fight would change 100%. But I hadn't a sharp sword, and that was the main difference.
Yeah, interesting. And so I think, speaking of myths, and now that you're mentioning swords, there's also, I think, one thing that was very interesting for me when watching your videos. I kind of came from the idea that, oh yeah, there's the almost like the counterbalance of the myth, where now you think that all swords were only a sidearm, were only used for, they were like, there's no point in using sword, especially against armor, it's completely ineffective. But then watching your videos, it's amazing how much they're used and how much damage they can still do even when someone is so yeah. What's your opinion on the effectiveness, let's say, of swords against armored combat? And is it really a myth that knights didn't use them as much as we think?
I cut a video today to this topic. So there will be a 20-minute video soon.
Okay.
The next one. Uploaded tomorrow to Patreons, and the week to the rest. But let's say it that way. I think swords, specialized swords, so S-talk-like swords, piercing armor swords, are the best weapon for knight. Better than any other weapon. So swords have a reason to be that important in in stories about knights, because they work. They work much, much better than everyone expected. Because they have the perfect distance. They have enough weight to penetrate mail armor. Not that good like a Mord Axt or a Pole Axe, but good enough. And they're not that long, so it's not a hindrance, or even a long lever like a Pole Axe isn't a hindrance, but they are much more effective in closer combat. And it's easy to go into close combat with a long enough weapon to parry. So a dagger is too short, but a sword is long enough to parry and go into close combat. So it's a perfect all-rounded weapon.
Okay, cool.
Better than any other weapon.
Interesting. I had that impression watching your videos, but yeah, I have to say I was also a bit victim of the sword is more of
Yeah,
an armored weapon.
I tried Warhammers, one-handed Warhammers,
Hmm.
short pole axes, long pole axes, and one-handed Warhammer sucks. They don't work
Mm.
because they can only penetrate mail armor. And if you try to hit the weak spots in armor, you need really strange angles to hit one-handed slashes into these spots, and like the armpit. So you have to
Hmm.
make underhooks to go in there. Normal hooks will never hit there. So it's a really weak weapon, you can say.
Mm.
Um, the only plate armor part where they can hit strong enough is the helmet. The rest, it's not really important. And poleaxes, yeah, they definitely hit enough to sometimes even break smaller bones in other parts and not only the skull, because their concussive works a little bit different. And they have the piercing components. But yeah, they are much heavier, much slower, and easier to parry. So it's not the better weapon in many cases. There are some
Mm.
cases, battles, swords suck. They are fast, but you have to go close, and you don't
Hmm.
want to go close in line defense. So there, spears, poleaxes are king, and all range weapons, of course. And swords are the last resort. But in duels, it's a complete other game. Duels don't work like
Mm.
battles. Yeah.
Interesting. And do you feel your work and your kind of videos and your training has academic value in the sense that do you see that there are insights that you gain that are non-achievable in other ways that can be useful, for example, for the researcher or for the um, historian or
Yeah. Definitely, but they
Mm,
also spread misconceptions, of course,
okay.
because I choose my videos, what video I will publish, so you can't watch all of them and think, oh, 99% of the videos end with the dagger, so the dagger is the best weapon.
Hmm.
That's a misconception made by my videos because they have to look cool, and I make my videos, my weapons safer. So when I thrust here in the mail armor, my opponent has to decide, okay, did it kill me? Most of the time it hits here on the side. So he had to decide that his arm didn't work anymore. But
Mm,
that's so hard if you fight for real and know you for a split second that your arm now didn't work anymore. And
mm,
2 seconds later, you concentrate on other shit and forget about it. So, yeah, it hit hard. So if someone stands there and I do the same stuff like I do in my videos, they wouldn't stand anymore because it hits hard. But if you fight, there's so much adrenaline to me and my opponents that they don't feel them really well. So
mm,
they have bruises after the fights. I have bruises after the fights, but you feel them a day later. And
yeah.
that's the reason why it's hard to act there. But when someone grabs you and pushes you into the ground and then puts a dagger on his side, your body stops and you can't move anymore. Then you feel, maybe I would be dead already. And
Yeah.
then it has an impact. So only daggers have an impact, and swords don't have an impact in my videos, but they would have a much bigger impact in real life. So that's the problem with non-choreographed stuff, because I can't remind my opponents to act. And I also forgot about acting often.
Hmm.
Only when these slower movements in ground fight come, then acting can be involved.
Do you think there is somewhere a balance where it would be possible to recreate today something that is um, that doesn't fall into the, let's say, these risks of misconceptions, or it's simply not being on the real battlefield, not risking your life really, and everything is just another world that we'll never be able to understand?
Yeah, I think it's possible to. This year, of course, is
Hmm.
one of my safe weapons. These spikes are hard rubber, so it's really hard to bend them, but I can bend them. Maybe it's possible to see it. Um, so this is yeah, kind of plastic. Um, so it's much safer. There are options to make it safe, but when you involve acting, it's it's possible to make this feel heavy, even when they are much lighter than real weapons. Um, can you hear my dog?
No, I
Oh,
can't,
that's a good
but
thing because it cries for more food. Food. Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah. So it's possible to do this much safer than my
yeah.
videos, and then it's possible um, to to do a real non-choreographed fight or a couple of them, and then try to replicate the coolest parts of these fights. And when you do this, it's possible to recreate a choreographed fight that's based on non-choreographed stuff.
Hmm.
So you have these messy components and you can decide for the coolest stuff. So something what I sometimes do in the editing process, but there it's hard to combine these parts because you, if I compare stuff, what I don't do in all videos, some videos. So if someone strikes a cool Zwerchhau technique and then goes into a half sword technique, and then I need another scene, I technically need the same stuff in the scene before on
Yeah.
both opponents and standing at the same places to combine two videos. So it's in most parts not possible to combine them. Um,
Mm.
so for all who cry no loud, because I said that I sometimes combine videos, it's not that often, and
Yeah.
it don't change anything to the non-choreographed style of
Okay.
filming these.
So then we have a bunch of hellos and compliments.
Thanks
Keep
for
up the
all of
great
these.
work. Hello, Dequitem. How are you? Love your video. And then we have though a question about your career. So, are you full-time Dequitem?
No, no. I'm an
Okay.
art teacher, so I have students that um, I tell them how to draw, how to um, paint, and sometimes even how to film. Um, but that's only a small part, the filming part.
Okay.
It's more about painting and drawing. And I do this 60% of my work time, and the rest, the 40%, I do the filming. But most of this will be, yeah, editing at my PC. That's the real part of Dequitem.
Okay. And based on what you just said, my question would be, how important has like iconography and art been in your like historical research or in your building of your armor? Or
Um, a big part. So I love sources that have beautiful pictures. So my um, most favorite fencing source is Paulus Hector Mayer, because Paulus Hector Mayer has the most beautiful pictures. um, yeah, sometimes I'm an artist. So when I build this helmet, um, it looks a little bit like a bicycle helmet for motocross, because this helmet is inspired by historical helmets, but it's not a replica. Because when I
mm,
forge, I'm an artist and I want to forge my own stuff and don't look at the originals and, oh, fuck, I I misformed something. So there's no historical helmet that looks exactly like this one. There are
Yeah.
some that have also visors that work like a closed helmet and have a relatively same shape to the back skull with this horn. And there are some visors that are more than this, some that have these, but not exactly the same. So, and this
Mm-mm.
is for all of my armor parts. So it's inspired by historical gear, but there is not a single armor that looks like my armor.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. And it's something that's actually been coming out a lot when talking to other sword makers. And it always surprises me a lot is how much creativity people put in something that is from the outside could be, oh, look, it's a sword. So it's already a very basic object in a sense from the outside, and
Yeah.
it's a reproduction. So how much creativity can you put into it? And instead, there's always a way to put your own inspiration into something. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Uh, we have a comment here from Viper Slavica as to the efficacy of longsword. The video of yours without any quotes was a great example of landing a critical hit against someone in full plate. Such satisfying hits. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that video, but the satisfying hits I can absolutely resonate with.
Hmm. Yeah, and the video with Arne Coates, sorry, English and then changing to another language is so hard.
Yeah.
So Arne Coates is was a really funny video. It was exciting and um, maybe you know it where a lance hit my head,
Oh, yes.
and then we
Okay,
do
that's one.
the sword fighting afterwards.
Exactly, yes.
And the sword fight, I we recorded two, and I only uploaded one to the public. Um, was started with one thrust, and it was a little bit funny because he said to me that he will start, or not we will start, but he will definitely use the Mordschlag in one of his scenes, and because here are some gaps, and when you do a Mordschlag, it's always good to know about it, because when a Mordschlag hits, unfortunately, there, it's
Yeah.
it's messy when if you have such a spike in your
Yeah.
shoulder. If it hits on the helmet, all fine. If it hits on the shoulders, all fine. But there's a small gap, and I'm experienced in getting hit in gaps. Yeah. So it was. I knew about this move, that it will come in this fight. So I was okay. He looks like he will do it soon, and then I pushed the sword forward in a Alba, so Posta di Pharaoh move to his groin and touched the groin a little bit. And then I retreat the sword because I thought, oh, that's the first fight. When I hit him there, we will not record any fights at this day anymore. So I only pushed it a little bit forward. And this was the first move. So yes, it was non-choreographed. He doesn't know about it. And I didn't know when he will do this move. It was funny that it was the first move, and I wasn't prepared to
Mm-mm-mm.
parry his move. Um, but yeah, in this situation, normally the fight would end it there,
Mm.
because I would have pierced his groin or upper leg, and he would bleed out in a split seconds. And
Yeah.
because I didn't choose to do what I was supposed to do, and then hit him in the shoulders and some other parts. And yeah, there is the adrenaline level and the fighting level. So yeah, the hit definitely hurt. This is not the biggest tip on the shoulder hit, but he didn't get used to it. He used the
Hmm.
same arm afterwards when he pushed the dagger in my shoulder that was already injured, theoretically injured. So yeah, this
Yeah.
fight was a good example of many techniques, but not of a real fight, because a real fight
Interesting.
would have my turn, because
Yeah.
I injured him twice before we got into wrestling, and he make a beautiful finish on me.
And speaking of Mordhau, we have a question here about it being named Murder Stroke or the equivalent of Murder Stroke, and why was it?
Did I said Mordhau? There is no Mordhau in the sources. It's the Mordschlag.
No,
This is
maybe
the
you said
only
Mordschlag,
word
and I'm
that
just
used in
reading
the
the
source.
comment.
So my mistake. Yeah, so you can translate it in Murder Strike. Murder Strike, right? It's named Murder Stroke. Yeah, yeah, it's not Mordhau. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, and that's it's named because it's a lethal blow, I suppose. That's kind of
Um, so
when it
should I
hits.
change the colors? I need a second. It
No
is
worries.
terrible. So
In the
better.
meantime, I'm going
Uh,
through a couple of
okay.
uh,
The question
comments.
was to the Murder Strike. I don't think that it's called Murder Strike, because Murder Strike is only the translation in German for something where you do something, try to kill someone. And I'm not sure why it called Murder Strike, because the lethality of a Murder Strike isn't that big. So
Hmm.
a quick stab with a sharp point blade in a gap would kill. A quick stab on the plates will do nothing. If I do the Murder Strike correctly with this one, I have the opportunity to hit his head with full force and injure or kill him. But if I
Hmm.
hit this one at any other place, I will do nothing. Maybe I displace his arm if I hit this on the elbow plate or on the upper arm plate, but I will not broke his arm or do anything to his armor, because this is heavy. It's the like a warhammer, maybe
Hmm.
like a two-handed warhammer if I hold it correctly, but it will not penetrate the plate. So it's not much more dangerous. Of course, it has more effect to displacing his arm, to do stuff to him that helps me in follow-up attacks, but it was not the attack that murders you in most cases. So the question is, when did it get used in the sources? And there are many techniques in Paulus Hector Mayer, for example, where this is used when the opponent is attacking you in time. So if someone tries to stab my foot, I can do this one to his helmet,
Hmm.
because he stabs my foot, that hurts my foot, but it will not kill me. And he can't parry this strike. This
Hmm.
strike is much harder to hit than a normal attack. With the tip of the sword, but not much more lethal. So I have the possibility to injure someone in the helmet, where with my helmet, it's not possible to injure me with the tip of the sword. So I can use it in some situations where I been aware that the opponent will injure me, but I have the possibility to kill him. So
Hmm.
it's something like a murder strike where I can get injured myself and I'm okay with it, because I try to murder him, but it's likely that I get murdered in the same time. So I'm not sure
Okay.
what's the main reason, because it's called murder strike. Maybe because I'm taking a huge risk, or maybe it's the only strike that can murder you with a sword if you have armor.
Mm. Okay,
There are
that
two possibilities.
explains a lot. Thank you. We have another question from Rintin Khan, which is there anything you have learned from your fights that surprised you?
Yeah, a lot of, but it came over time. So there's not so much anymore. Um, the last one was the spinning move of my opponent, Noah. Yeah, he is a black belt in Chiruaiki Jujutsu or something like that. It's a long term. Sorry. So he knows a lot of stuff about samurai fighting style, and he said it's a historical technique to try to push in. So the opponent thinks you do close combat. He would try to grab you or defend himself from grappling, and then you turn around him and turn in a spinning move and cut to his legs. So samurai
Mm,
armor normally has no leg protection in the back side of the leg, but knight armor has the long mail armor and the closed greaves. So I was completely fine. A samurai wouldn't have two legs anymore. So it was interesting to see that spinning move working because of the preparation of showing the opponent, I will grapple you now. And
mm,
I was absolutely defending and pushing forward my pommel to stop that and then try to hit him on the back, what I was not that yeah successful with. But he did a very nice technique, and there was much comment about now spinning moves. Now it's proven that spinning moves works, and I wasn't aware of it. Of course, all moves can work if
yeah,
the opponent does shit in that moment,
yeah.
uh, or isn't reacting to something because it's so stupid. So sometimes the most stupid attacks work the best, and that's also funny. But I wasn't aware of it, that there is an actual technique for spinning that can work without an opponent that do shit. And
Mm.
that was funny. So that was a real nice technique, and learning it mid-fight was also very nice.
I hope. Speaking of open gaps, you were already mentioning it before, but I'll take advantage now before I forget. What's in your experience the most open spot, like the biggest target in an armored fighter, like the one that normally will give the most chances of actually piercing through
The arms. The
in
arms or
European?
the face. Yeah. Uh,
Okay,
of
yeah.
course, when I have something like this helmet, even my neck is 100% protected. So
Yeah.
there's a big steel plate here, and inside is the male standard, which reaches to this point. So there's this amount of overlap. So there's no possibility to get me
Mm,
here. So the only big spot that leaves open are the arms. Many people mentioned that they are my back of the that they are the backs back that they are the back of the legs. So the inside the knee. Um,
hmm
but I never was injured or hit there with a big weapon. In grappling, sometimes you get hit with a dagger there, um, but without grappling, when you're standing, it was never possible to hit me there in the spot. So even the
mm.
spinning move actually hit the male armor, not my unprotected leg. So never get hit there. This is one of the misconceptions, that it's easy to get hit there.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yes, the arms are 95% of all hits.
Okay, interesting. I before we go to another topic quickly, well, not another one because we've been talking about it, but we'll just quickly comment. We have couple of comments here. So Buhurt is best Hurt, and then I think the answer was from Eric Danner, which is wrong. And
Oh,
then he continues that he was inspired by you to start He-Man Full Plate. So what is your opinion on Buhurt, and how does, like, what are the pros and cons you see? or the bigger differences compared to what they do versus what you do, or versus traditional HEMA, let's say?
Mhm. Um, I started with fencing with sabers, and then I built armor to do Buhurt one time. I never did actually Buhurt in group fights. I did
Mm,
many Buhurt duels and yeah, competed there in tournaments as well, but I never did any groups fights because I
mm.
think that Buhurt groups fights are one of the most dangerous sports on earth. um,
Okay.
Not because there are more frequent injuries than in any other sport. There are, but that's not the biggest reason. The biggest reason is that it's not about you. It's a group sport. So no matter how good you are, you never know when a sword is hitting your back.
Mm,
Or not a sword, maybe a big halberd that is double the weight like any historical halberd.
mhm.
Um, and that's so dangerous. I knew a lot of people with some serious injuries who can't compete in Buhurt anymore because they get hurt in Buhurt. And
Okay.
I don't like to be one of them. And
Mm,
that's the reason why I'll never tried group Buhurt fights. So I'm not the one who can talk a lot about it
mhm.
because I'm only the one who do duels or watch Buhurt.
Yeah.
And so I have big respect for people who fight in Buhurt. And it's not only dangerous, it's skillful to use only a couple techniques. It's like only using Oberhau strikes and then doing cool stuff. That's not easy. But of course, it's also so restricted in some unnecessary ways. I don't like the duel segment of Buhurt much because I understand from the point of view that most of the helmets are designed to, yeah, look a little bit historical in the visor parts. So there are sometimes viewing sights that can get pierced. And I understand that they don't want to change it. Um, so I understand why they don't use thrusts. But thrusts in duels, when you have a closed visor, are actually not much more dangerous than strikes. They are
Mm,
more dangerous, but only if you have a broken blade or not a safe tip. So Buhurt swords don't have this roll tip. They only have a straight round tip. And of course, there have to be changes, but they don't do it at the moment. So I'm not that interested in Buhurt anymore for my part.
yeah.
Because I like the rest. And they also limit all the ground fighting parts because you're normally out of a fight,
Yeah.
not in the dual section, but in the group fights, if you're hitting the ground with more than three parts of your body.
Yeah.
Um, so there's so much stuff that leaves from Buhurt that I like more than the rest sometimes. So the coolest fights for me, even from feeling the fight, are the ground fights,
Hmm.
and don't have them is a huge drawback for me. And also don't feel the impact of some weapons that have a huge impact um, is the sad part. So a friend of mine, who is one of the best fighters in Germany in Buhurt, um, hit me a couple of times with bigger weapons from Buhurt, and they hurt a lot, and they don't work on my armor because my armor don't have much padding. It's
Hmm.
sometimes too thin because this is only 2 millimeter and the visor only
Oh,
1.5 millimeter,
wow. Okay.
and only 4 millimeter padding, and Buhut
Oh,
often uses 4 centimeter of
yeah.
padding. So there's a huge difference. So I
Yeah.
can't compete with this helmet in Buhut. And they hit me a lot with Buhut helmets. And yeah, it hurt kind of. If you don't fight, it always hurts more. Um, but it didn't knock me out. I think that it's possible to get knocked out, and there are many examples for it. But
Mhm.
one of the things that knocked me out was a straight thrust with a spear that hit
Mm.
me on the visor. And that pushed my brain so fast backwards or forward in terms of the skull
Both.
uh, that I was knocked out, and it wasn't a strong hit. So
Mm.
you can knock out people so fast with thrusts if you place them correctly, that thrusts have an impact and could do the same work, but it's too dangerous if you don't change the armor. So
Mhm.
there would be ways to put them into Buhut safely, but there's so much that they have to change. The same is on HEMA. Of course, I'm a HEMA practitioner as well, and I have all my HEMA gear. But when I can choose to do armored combat or HEMA, I always choose armored combat because it makes so much more fun to use it. So I have also concerns on the HEMA part, like I have on Buhut part.
Mm.
Um, but that's because I like something more than something other. That doesn't mean that I think that someone competes in one section wouldn't couldn't compare in the other section. So yeah, someone who don't know any historical techniques can still beat me because he's physically stronger or something like that. So that doesn't mean anything. And there are so many Buhut fighters that have incredible skill and yeah,
Yep.
I like
And
Buhut, but not competing.
okay, yeah, for me, I think apart from like the criticism or technique, the thing that really strikes me and I like about Buhurt, about the group fight, is just the chaos of the clash. Like when you see all the it really makes me, oh, in my head it feels like this is how it must have been, to face a bunch of people in armor and weapons just in front of you and just run into each other. But yeah, that's more of a viewer's
Yeah,
opinion. Speaking
same for me.
of armor, here we have another question about, have you ever been unable to see your opponent due to low visibility of wearing a visored helmet?
Yeah, happens sometimes, of course. Um, it's not that there isn't the case that you can't see the full person anymore because there are so many holes, but it's a hard part to know what they are doing at this moment because you see only some fragments of your opponent, and often you can't see them because you can't turn your head in the right places. So if you're
Mm,
hugging someone for throwing him soon, you don't know what his arms are doing at that moment. So sometimes you are confused because your dagger is missing and your opponent has two daggers. So you can't see as much, but it's not because you can't see your opponent very well. You see a lot very well, but you're missing parts because you're
mm,
concentrating on some small holes and some small parts of your opponent. And it's often a feeling because if you are in some clinch moments, you can't see anything of your opponent then except the side of his helmet and some parts of his shoulder, and the rest is something that you don't know.
And speaking of lack of senses, how much impact does noise have when you're inside the armor?
Not much. because it's
Okay.
so loud that you don't rely on sounds at all. The
Oh,
only
okay.
sound
Yes.
that matters for me
Mm.
anymore is someone calling stop. That's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
only sound that you're trying to listen. Sometimes sound, if you hear a ping, you know, oh, I hit my opponent. But sound isn't important anymore. Then
Hmm.
I often throw off my gauntlets because you can't feel much, and grabbing a dagger is really hard, and grabbing your opponent is even harder because with big gauntlets or mittens, there are so much parts that you can't grab. So, for example, in the last fight with the samurai, he grabbed the back of my helmet and was able to push me into the ground. And I couldn't grab him at all, even when the kabuto, the samurai helmet, have a huge gap in the back. But
Hmm.
I wasn't able to grab them with my
Mm.
gauntlets because it's so hard to grab anything. So if your swords fall on the ground and lies on the ground, the only way to grab it is to grab here in the blade because here's a gap with the ground
Yeah.
and here it's not possible. So that's a big problem. And yeah.
Now, speaking, oh well, let's address a couple of comments still. So one of them is less about swords, but more about your artwork. So people are curious about your artwork.
I can't read the comment.
Oh, many. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Many times you tell us
Yeah.
you're an art teacher. Could you show us your artwork?
Um, have I something in
I
this
don't know
room?
if he means now, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yes, I can show. Um, I show every day. My films are art as well.
Exactly.
I can show some paintings maybe in the future. Of course, why not?
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And then we had again confirming your point on stupid moves. Sometimes works the best. Reminds me of a saber match I saw where one fencer wound up a very obvious big hit and their opponent just didn't react. So yeah, sometimes the less skillful move is the one that actually hits the hardest.
Yeah, I told that I visited the Kader, the German longsword top 10 fencers, and I didn't lost all of them, but I didn't win the majority in longsword fencing. But I did win a couple of them, and I had a fought with the top one fighter of Germany, and we were pretty even in that match. I don't say that I would win if this was tournament. I think he would win. But he said at the end when I was breathing heavily and said, okay, last hits, he said, okay, then one for all. So, oh, no, not one for all. Sorry. So winner takes all
Yeah, yeah.
of that round. I took my sword in a half sword technique and pushed my hand here, and he didn't sword in that moment. And because in this gauntlets it wasn't possible, I pushed it here, but the technique shows it here.
Hmm.
And he thought, okay, I will stay in close range. I do half sword, and then I throw the sword in his face and won. So yeah, sometimes the most stupid, it's not stupid in a way, but you
Yeah,
don't see it as a normal HEMA tournament fencer normally.
yeah. Uh, We have one last question by Bra Howes too, because it's 3 a.m. Where he is. So he just wanted to ask one last thing. You're really living the life, art teacher, armored fighter, and also blacksmith, craftsman. If you can give us a tip, what would it be?
That's the things I talk about my life, but there are so many stuff more. Okay, enjoy every moment. So when I walk with my dog and my son um, every day, twice to three times, I always try to see what's beautiful in that moment. Sometimes it's the sky, sometimes it's the wind, the weather, or something other stuff. Enjoy every moment. Even it's
That
not interesting in that moment, there are some interesting details in all parts of our life, even
wise
the
words.
ones where I don't fight.
Cool. I wanted to ask you about now that you mentioned this weird move where you kind of threw the sword. This would work because of the HEMA scoring system, I guess, right? Because it's the touch
I'm not sure
or
if it wouldn't work, but of course you will get a yellow card for doing
yeah,
that
oh yes,
move
of course.
because you will damage the ground. And
Yeah,
I was told after throwing the sword that it isn't good for the ground as well
that makes
in
sense.
that gym. So yeah, it's not that common because of that reason.
Mm. And do you see in terms of the scoring, the way the touch counts as a point? In one of the talks we had previously with a couple of other HEMA instructors, they were quite critical about, well, no, not critical, but let's say they were hoping for I suppose, more realistic scoring system in a sense where, let's say, if I touch your arm, of course, but you pierce me through the chest, that should
Yeah,
kind of count. What are your
um,
thoughts on this?
I think it's the same. I talked about the Mordschlag and getting pierced in the foot. It's a
Hmm.
historical technique. So they tell you in the sources that if your opponent does a stupid attack that only injures you, do it. Just let him do his stupid attack. Let him injure you, but you will get the better point, the killing blow. Um, and that's a huge part in armored combat. So if someone tries to strike you, go into grappling because his strike will do nearly nothing to your armor if you close. If you go backwards, if someone strikes you, he will go into the position to thrust you. So to strike too short to then follow up in a thrust. So there are so many moves that only make sense if you can get a double hit.
Hmm.
But the problem is in HEMA worlds that we are not afraid of getting hit. So there are these tournament fighters that only do one thing. They wait in Alba or Fluke and wait for you to do something. And if you have to do something for amount of time, um, and there's often a timer in tournaments,
Hmm.
yeah, you do something stupid, and then they can cut you. But if it would be a real duel, no one would stand there and know, maybe you pierce me in the chest, but I will definitely pierce you in the chest. That isn't a good move. So, yeah, the scoring system in HEMA is shit, but the
Hmm.
alternatives are also shit.
Yeah,
So,
it's just
um, and maybe you can say to tournament fighters, take off your gear, only the fancy mask because we will stay alive. Um, and then a realistic scoring system would work. But as far as we need protection and we need it, um, it will not work realistically. And so
yeah,
we need some strange rules with afterblow stuff and stuff like that, that is completely unhistorical. And I like that you have some afterblow time because there are so many sources of duels where someone pierced someone in the chest. So 100% death, but he can still strike a couple of hits.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
when my arm was broken, so the bone pierced outwards,
Oof.
I was still able to continue nearly a minute the fight and didn't notice it. I noticed that I couldn't move my arm anymore,
Yeah.
but I felt that injury a couple of hours later, not
Yeah.
in that moment. And yeah, many people say that if you see the blood, you feel the pain. Yes, that can happen, but sometimes you see the blood and still don't know what happened. So if you see blood, but you don't see the bone, you don't know that, oh, maybe it's not that bad. So you can continue.
Mm-mm-mm.
And yeah, that's a problem with HEMA.
Yeah.
It can't be correct, so you need strange rules.
Yeah, and I guess it's also as the sport grows and becomes more codified into an actual like worldwide sport with federations and stuff, you really need to focus on safety. That you can't
Yeah.
afford certain risks. Um, we have again Warlord Flanker. Now that you're rubbing elbows with Arne
Ah,
Kut,
hi.
will you be experimenting with more Rosfektin in the future?
I'm sorry. Um, what was the second part of the question?
If you'll be experimenting with more
Rostfichten.
Rosfektin in the future.
Um, I can ride. I had a horse many years, um, but I'm not good enough to do it on my part. And I'm afraid of injuring someone who can't something do against it, and that's a horse.
Mm. Mm.
And I like what Arne Kutz does with his Rossfechten, but I think at the same time that it's stupid. I love to do stuff with him, and he knows what he's doing, but I don't think that 90% of his members and other people who do stuff with their horses are at the same level like him and can do it without maybe injuring the horse. So um, Arne Kutz wasn't the only one who asked me to do stuff with him on horses, but Arne was the only one where I was sure that we will not injure any horse because he's such an amazing rider, a horseman. So I will not do it in the next future. Maybe the day will come that I have the opportunity to train hard with horses and don't upload on YouTube for months or years to get on the same level like Arne. And that's a part where most viewers will say, no, don't do it. uh, but if you don't have the level like him, I'm not sure if it's a good idea to do
Mm.
stuff like he did or he do. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about your recent videos. We talked about it already a little, but the ones between the knight and the samurai. So the whole, and it comes to mind because of the whole, it's almost the stereotypical pointless debate when you think about people discussing whether the katana or the longsword is the better weapon. But then you were able to turn this into a very interesting video. And what insights, like, what are the learnings of putting such different? Actually, it's not only the samurai. You even did it with gladiator and like different kinds of eras and fighters. And do you gather any cool insights from this kind of anachronistical or hagiographical
Mm.
mm, clash?
First of all, it doesn't matter if you have an advantage.
Hmm.
I think the knight have a big advantage for in terms of fighting a samurai, but it doesn't matter for the outcome that much. So I think if you have a certain degree of armor that you can rely on, it's not the biggest deal anymore. So if the samurai can tank only one hit with most of his armor parts, he can go into close combat and is able to defeat me there because he don't have any gauntlets and have a big advantage there. So of course, in a battlefield, the scenario would be much more different because there it's much harder to go into grappling and rely on that advantage. But if you normally do duels, the advantage is only slightly higher. There's a reason why 99% of all images of fighting knights in duels show finger gauntlets, because then you have a bigger advantage, but also more risk. So there are sometimes in duels parts that are not that big. So if the gladiator, who only has a helmet, a small shield, and some chin protection, was able to get into close combat, the disadvantage wasn't that big anymore. But at the same time, he had no armor at his chest. So for me, any cut I could do on him was lethal. So he lost even the fight where he threw me completely to the ground a couple of times and was superior in most ways. But he lost at the end because he has no chest protection. And Samurai has chest protection and even protection in many areas where you don't know about it because there's wool and silk over it, or linen. And so he don't have that big disadvantage like many think. And yes, a long sword is a better sword than most katana swords for fighting against armor. And that's what we did there. But yeah, in all these fights, I won kind of two, and he definitely won two outstandingly, so much superior than me. But the reason for this was that he has this big advantage in grappling. So he won both in grappling, and the one that I won and didn't show it was because I hit him with a sword. So I hit him a couple of times with a sword, but not that nasty in most cases. But that would change the fight. So I'm not sure if he did win the fights in real fights because he was already injured. And that's hard to take in mind. And so it's a little bit hard to judge. And many people who comment under these videos were claiming, you lost against a samurai, so the samurai is maybe stronger, or the samurai lost against the knight, so the knight is strong. No, it's one fight. Yeah, I can defeat many better fighters, and many much worse fighters can defeat me. It's only one fight. You have luck, or not luck. Maybe I did the wrong decision. So you always doing decisions in HEMA that are not that big. In HEMA, without armor, you normally do only cuts that protect you in the same move. But if you do something in armored combat, you have always to overcommit to your movements, because you need to hit a very, very small spot, and you will never hit this small spot, and all fights would end in grappling if you don't try to overcommit. But if you overcommit, your opponent can much easier counter you. So if you do the wrong move, sometimes out of luck, sometimes out of the right decision or the counter decision without knowing that it's a counter before, changed the fight completely.
Well, that's really interesting. Thank you. Sir Alone just reminded me about this question. Sorry, I forgot. I was trying to juggle all the comments in thematic order is not working, and I forgot this one. So, what's your wrestling background, and how long have you trained, and in what specific arts?
I trained judo. I trained some stuff with friends. I never was in a jiu-jitsu class, but I have many fights with jiu-jitsu people, so I already know some stuff from there. And I do ringen a lot, many ringen and armor, of course, too. But it's 90% of my knowledge comes from fighting people who knew a technique that I don't know, and they show me. So
Mm.
I don't have the time for classes in judo or stuff like that anymore. I had in the past, but I don't have it anymore. And so I'm learning from fighting. So it's much. I have a lot of techniques from Mongolian wrestling
Ooh.
that have nothing to do with night fights. So, if you look in the sources of night fights, there are nearly no foot sweeps where you strike with your leg or foot against the leg of your opponent. But it's hard to tell because it's sources that only show pictures and only a couple of sentences. How you do this stuff is only reconstruction. So you're not sure about how to do these movements. Maybe they are much closer to Mongolian wrestling, where you do a
Mm.
lot of wriggling on the shoulders and striking with the back of your leg to outside sweeps. But you're not sure. So I do a lot of stuff that has some background in other martial arts that were shown from friends and other martial artists to me, um, and try to compare them and put them into my repertoire. So I can't tell what real background I have because it's much harder. So I started with judo, but now I can't tell anymore.
Okay, cool. We have a question here about what's your favorite. Oh, sorry, wrong one. But
Yeah,
hi, Googleplex. And then he actually has a question, which is, did you ever try jousting? So you already answered a little bit about this, but have you ever tried actually? No,
no,
or
no, no. Um,
okay.
Riding a lot, also wielding sticks on horseback as a child. But no, I don't think that I will do it. Um, I have huge respect for them, but not at the moment. Maybe in a far future.
And favorite piece of armor?
Favorite piece of armor? There's nothing more important than a helmet, but helmets are not the coolest part of armor. Yeah, the chest plate is important. I don't know what the question means. The favorite part of my own armor are my elbows. I like my elbows.
Okay. Because they were hard to forge, or what's the, or they just look really cool?
They are really simple build, and I like how they are made. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, they're so cool armor parts and so cool smith parts. I don't like my own armor. Um, so I think that would I have more time, I would make a better one. But yeah, every week I decide to upload a video or to forge. And at the
Choices.
moment, I'm in a weekly grind of loading stuff on YouTube, so I don't have nearly any time to forge on my own
Hmm.
armor because I have to forge weapons and stuff for the videos. Yeah.
And maybe adding on to the question here, but if you could forge your dream armor, what style would it be, or what?
I think it's a mix because there are so cool parts in different um, locations. So I like the mail armor from Italian armor, these very long leg
Mhm.
mail armor that I use also. But I like the elbows from Gothic armor, so nearly my armor as well.
Mhm.
But I like the fluting style of German armor as well. But I don't like the helmets of many German armors. I don't like salads because they are not safe.
Mm.
So it has to be a mix, maybe some Italian export to to England,
Yeah,
maybe something
sounds
like this.
well. That's a nice answer. So we have still comments and questions coming in. So how much again, Warlord Flanker? How much time does it take to film and edit your videos? We actually addressed part of this
Yeah,
earlier in
I
our.
can put a number on it a little bit faster to go
Yes.
to the next question. So I think it's 10 hours of filming. Then I have 8 to 20 hours of editing, and then maybe 10 hours of preparing armor, repairing armor, and stuff like this. That's the average amount. So it's around 40 hours for one video, sometimes much more, sometimes a little bit less. Yeah.
Then we have still this one, but I think you already kind of addressed a lot of it. So when did you start with HEMA harness? Anything similar? So
Yeah.
sorry, I'm going finding the comments I
Yeah.
missed. Sorry, everyone. But yeah,
Kind
then
of
there's
13 to 5 years. So,
and I think there's one question for me here, which is if I would dare fight you, and I mean, for the fun of it, I would, but I know I would get beaten up first. My skills are.
I can be nice. I can be
Oh, okay,
nice.
that's good to
So
know.
we can do
So
Himagir and do very slow fighting. And
yeah,
that's how I
so
normally start with my opponents, because I don't have to show the best. So many people after fighting me think, oh, he isn't that good. Yeah, because I
that's
don't
how you
want to
fool
injure
them.
someone and go fully in. And that's how 90% of my opponents also fight, because they could go higher if they try to kill me. So
Mhm.
most HEMA fighters, if they don't have to show something, they don't do full combat. And yeah, I start normally very gently, and so it's not a big deal to fight me.
That's good to know. And I will say, I will, if I'm ever in Germany, I do volunteer to be one of the peasants. So, and we have one more question here from Googleplex again. And if anyone has some last questions, because I don't want to keep you all night, so feel free to add them now, and we can do one last round of questions, I think. But anyway, in the meantime, we have this one. So, how useful is a poleaxe or any large two-handed weapon on horseback? Like lances are long and large, so why not halberds or great swords?
Um, Lances are very, very large. They're sometimes over 6 meters, but the tip isn't the heaviest point, of course. But a halberd has the heaviest point on the tip, so you can't make them much larger, and it's much harder to wield them in a perfect way. So if you have a lance, you can do okay. That's actually too long, so I have to take this dagger and imagine that's a lance or spear. If you right at someone, you can move this very quickly and turn in the last moment the attack. Also, you normally right forward, and then poof, in the last second you hit him, so that he can't imagine when the hit will come, or you do this because when you hit them. So it's much harder than you think to parry a lance, but it would be very easy to parry uh, a halberd from horseback, because if you strike this way, or if you pierce this way, because the tip is too heavy to do strange movements.
Okay, thank you. Speaking still of horse encounters, I had one last question about what it felt like being hit by a lance. uh, from a person on horseback. That is
For the
pretty
person on
impressive.
horseback, okay. Um,
No, even for
how
you.
does
For
it?
you, I was thinking more for
Okay.
you.
Yeah, for me, I answered this in a long video, but quick answer. I didn't know much. I felt pushing backwards, but the adrenaline level was so high that I don't have many. I can't remember much about any pain, but there was maybe for the man on
Okay, and
horseback. He will felt some push here, and then that was all.
yeah, and then on to the next. One last request, I think, of information, which I think is maybe useful to perhaps close on, is if you have any tips for reaching out or finding others who do Harnischfechten. So, do you have any people groups or anything in the EU? They specify later. Um,
Um, yeah, there are many groups in France, a couple of groups in Italy, which have the most members. There are 3 to 4 groups in Germany, but the best option is to go to a HEMA class or a Behurt class first and ask them if they are interested in stuff like this. There are so many HEMA groups with 1 or 2 HEMA practitioners with armor, not many, but a few, and they are looking for other people with the same interest and the same money in their background to buy something like an armor. So there are so many people who search for others and nobody knows about them. I think Facebook is the best page with many different groups to find anyone who does this. Not the best option to find HEMA classes. There are some maps on Google and Wikipedia, I think. Yeah, there are some maps where you can find HEMA classes, and maybe there are people who are interested as well. So do find them because they are alone as well.
I have two more questions from one from Jonas, which asks if it's possible to ever make a video in Austria, as there are so many great castles there.
um, if there are people who wants to fight with me, then for sure. Yes, I love
It's
the
a
castles
challenge.
in Austria as well, but the biggest challenge is to find people who are willing to fight there. So I can only watch for people who are willing to fight against me, and then we are looking for a location on Google Maps or something like this, where I can find something that's in the middle, something that's nearby to one of us then. And then I ask for the permissions of the locations. But I can't do filming in Austria with people who are living in North Germany or the Netherlands or something like this. That
Mhm.
doesn't make much sense because there are so many beautiful locations here or more far north as well. So I hope so that there will be someone who's calling me soon in Austria, and then maybe yes.
So for anyone listening, you know what to do. And one last strange question, I think, but interesting. Would you like to recreate an ancient style fight with chariots?
Yes, but who pays for it?
Exactly. The logistics for that may be extreme. And
Yeah.
okay, one more comment here from Jim Barry. Not sure if you already explained it anywhere, but my question was looking at your videos. How do you and your group train HEMA? That is, how do you guarantee historical accuracy of it? So a lot of it has been addressed already in the previous part of the video, but if you want to add
Yeah.
something.
Normally, we of course do some historical techniques and try to recreate something from the books or the images. But depart from other HEMA groups, we have the advantage that we have armor, and if you have armor, you understand these armor techniques much more. So if you don't have armor, you can't imagine how it feels to move, or when the arms get locked automatically so that you can't use an arm bar or stuff like this. So you have to try it out in real armor to understand it better. But of course, we are also trying to look for something that works. And there are techniques in these sources that don't work that nicely. So I wouldn't say that there are techniques that don't work at all. All works, everything works in a strange situation. Um, but there are, of course, some techniques that are so simple that no source tells about it. So yeah, some sources are strange and telling the simplest stuff. Like one of the techniques that I could only find in a fencing book of Albrecht Dürer was where you grab your opponent in on no, it was not Albrecht Dürer, but a simple thing. You grab your opponent in the hip section, pull him upwards, and push him on the ground. Very simple. Most sources don't show it. Also, Gladiatorial shows it, so it's not that strange technique. But there are some strange techniques. Albrecht Dürer, by example, where you grab the tip of the blade and push it into the opponent's helmet in grappling, something like this. So that's not a thing that you have to show someone in real combat, because he will do it if it's needed in that situation, but you will never do it in any other situation that you grab with both hands near the tip and use the blade here to use the full sword as a dagger. It's so situational. And in those situations, you don't have to tell people these techniques, because they will get creative if they try to stay alive. And these fights sometimes feel real because of the adrenaline level when you do all the grappling stuff as well.
Cool, thank you.
That's maybe
So
yeah.
why do you think then these weird techniques are represented in like manuals or in like is it just because sometimes you want to show something strange or
Yes.
okay.
These people who draw and painted and wrote these books, or sell people or ask people to draw them for them, were people who sometimes want to show off or acquire students for their classes or something like that. So they have to show strange things that aren't common. So normally you don't have to show how you strike an Oberhau. It's so basic that you don't have to show it, most people, but it's also so important that you sometimes show it as well. But there are techniques that are too common so that you would never get new students for showing the basic simple stuff. So if you talk about half sorting, for example, you find many techniques on half sorting, like to grapple and do stuff with half sorting to get someone on the ground, because it's hard and you have to talk people on and show people how to do it. But you never see how to step with half sword. You see how to stand with half sword because there are different stances in different situations. But you don't show how to step someone because it's too basic. And that's why there are so strange techniques, like for example, in Fiore, how to fight with a chair against someone with knife. It's not the most common thing in duels. It's not the most common thing on battlefields, but it's so strange if you have techniques about that thing that it's cool to show it, and it will acquire some new students as well,
Yeah.
maybe.
It goes to show marketing wasn't born in the 20th century.
Yeah.
It's interesting though because I wonder how many people then look at these texts that are, let's say, omitting a lot of the basics because they're basics, and then think, oh, this is some kind of really unusual fighting style that it has all the like chair versus knife or something, and it's like, yes, of course, but they're not showing maybe a lot of the rest as well. So okay, so I think I don't want to keep you too long because I your dog may be starving by now.
No,
So
no, no. He had enough. He
okay.
had too much, but he's always hungry.
So yeah, it was a pleasure to have you. So thank you very much, and of course you're always welcome if you want to talk about more details. I think we could go on for hours. And thank you everyone for watching as well. Yeah, it was a great few hours in good company.
Thank
So yes. So, well, I'm sure every one of you already follows Dequitem, but if you don't, make sure to check out all of his
you. Yeah,
videos. And
and
yeah,
hit the subscribe button also on Rapier's Delight.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, have a good night or a good day, everyone. Bye.
Yo, bye bye.